Hello, everybody, and welcome to the A Little Bit More podcast with Pastor Kevin. I'm your host, Lee, and we are here to extract a little bit more from the mind of this man.
It's a terrifying
He
thought.
prepared hours and hours and hours of incredible facts and figures and was unable to share it all in a single Sunday sermon. We also had our special guests, the Calabrics, who are some of our missionary partners. Yep. The one that sounds most like Dracula. Mm-hmm. We always talk about that because the first time that we ever met him, I asked him a question. He said, I do. And I love that. I'll never forget it. So we are supporting him and his family, and it's awesome. And as we're learning to love like Jesus and live like missionaries, and also with the overarching theme of work is worship, to remind us that you don't have to be an amazing missionary overseas. You are a missionary right where you're at today. As you're listening to this podcast, don't forget that. So be praying for the Lord to show you some opportunities.
Maybe people listening are literally driving into their mission
could be
field,
driving
the
in your
context.
mission field. So be praying for that. Keep that in your mind. But go ahead and give us a little bit more, Kevin. What you got?
Ephesians chapter 4. The way in which we're doing the reading plan is great. Like, people are diving in throughout the week, but these shorter letters, like, we only get like 1 week, 1 week in Colossians, 1 week in Ephesians. And so, but the reason I picked chapter 4 is it's kind of like this survival manual for believers. And it's really interesting what's happening in Ephesus versus what's happening in 2026, and particularly in our context, America, how very similar what's going on. And so, like, sometimes we get so disconnected when we talk about people groups and cities like Ephesus. Like, what do I even know about Ephesus? Other than I know that Paul wrote a letter to these people. Well, where's Paul when he's writing this letter? So those are a couple of things I want to dive into. So Ephesus, I think the best city that we would all know that I would point your attention to would be Chicago. Okay. So I want you to think like a port city. There's a lot of hustle and bustle going on. It's not just some dusty dirt tribal little town. Like, for some of us, when you think Bible time, you just think of like a dusty town. Mm-hmm. It's not what Ephesus would have looked like. It's a port city. Money is being interchanged, but it's also a melting pot.
Yeah, a lot of people coming and going.
A lot of different people with a lot of different ideas. So you have Roman people that are Roman civilians. That you have Jewish people. You have Gentiles. You have people who were worshiping idols. Some context that you get if you pull Acts chapter 19. It talks about burning these scrolls. Now, if these scrolls were still around, they would have been worth like millions upon millions of dollars today. These scrolls would have been worth something to them too, because it had, like wizard stuff on it, basically. So for those pop culture people, it'd be kind of like Harry Potter stuff. And they were burning these scrolls because they were getting rid of their old life and now becoming followers of the way, Christians as we know today. And so they have this melting pot of all these different worldviews and also different histories. And so you put all those people in the pews together, for our modern context. You put all those people with different backgrounds, and you expect them to worship together. And so Paul, this church that he helped plant and oversee and move forward, he's now writing on house arrest as a prisoner of Nero, but he doesn't give Nero any space in the letter. He doesn't call himself a prisoner for...
Nero put me here.
Yeah, he doesn't say that. What does he say? As a prisoner for the Lord. Then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. So Paul is using some interesting writing techniques of he's trying to pull examples from his own life to make a point of what we're supposed to do. Because if I'm on house arrest, or I'm sitting in a cell, or I just feel like I'm in adult timeout, I'm probably not having this perspective. I think most of us aren't. Some of us may even feel prisoners at work, like we're talking about work as worship. Mm-hmm. Some of you may feel a prisoner in your context Maybe you feel like a prisoner in your marriage. Maybe you feel a prisoner just in life in general. Paul was literally a prisoner, and he's calling us to be worthy of the call. And so, really the big thing is we have to continue to work from the calling, not for. God has given us work, but why do we work? We keep coming back to the why. Why are we working? I think some of us work because it silences out all the other things. It gives us a good distraction. Maybe you actually really enjoy going to work on Monday because you get to escape whatever's going on at home. Maybe some of you guys are leaning into maybe a more unhealthy way. You're a workaholic. It gives you purpose. It gives you're leaning into that. But the worthy of the call, like how do we walk the worthiness of the call in which God has given us? That's what I really have wrestled with in this text. And Paul is really working against tribalism.
I think that's really fascinating to think about when what you said earlier about Paul we talk about attitude and perspective a lot. If he's just sitting there thinking, woe is me, I've given my life to serving the Lord, and I keep finding myself in prison, why would you do this to me, God?
Yeah.
But some people even today have that same mindset, and it's easy to do. Like we humanize everything. Instead, Paul's like, you know what? I'm going to be used by the Lord no matter where I am. And he has that attitude. I'm going to make this happen. And I think it's really encouraging when you read into this, it's really encouraging all of us today. Are you being like you call it being an Eeyore?
Yeah.
Like, am I being an Eeyore in any part of my life? And if you are, maybe you're missing out on an opportunity that's in front of you. That because you're feeling bad for yourself.
Yeah. We talked about being a porcupine too, about a year ago. I think that was almost a year ago now. But that idea is that we just want to have our quills up and we're ready just to either retreat back or fight someone.
Yeah.
And
Paul easily could have just sat there and felt bad about himself. Instead of literally, we have all these amazing texts that he's written to these churches.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
And what does he say? Be completely humble, right? And so he uses that word humble before he talks about what? Unity. Unity is impossible without humility. So he starts with, hey, we first have to be completely humble. If this is ever going to work, once again, he's talking to a melting pot of people, not just in the way in which they look, but what they believe and have believed, their history. And so he's like, okay, we got to start with humility, and then we're going to move into this understanding. We got to have the same worldview. Because what you guys have done is you're saying, okay, yes, we believe in the same God, but you view baptism that way and you view baptism that way. He starts going into it goes one. I think there's 7 of them. And so there's this idea of, and it's interesting. Once again, it goes back to the writing. So you have, if you go all the way back to, you're called to what? One hope. When you were called to one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, one Father of all. But if you go just a little bit further, what does he start with the ones? One body and one spirit. It's fascinating, the order, right? So the order is actually, I looked up a couple of scholars. Many of them believe that this was a literary thing that he was trying to do. Is, okay, we're starting with one body, one spirit to get us down. If you think about it like a roadmap, here's where we're going to start. These are all important things and things that we're struggling with, but we're going back to the source. I'm going to show you the root of why this is all important. So what's the last one? If you look at it.
Yeah, one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all.
Yep. So he's the source. He's the one that we're submitting to. It's his way. You're not the most important person in the room. Your ways are not the most important. It's his ways. It's this discernment piece. And so that's really what Paul is trying to bring us to. I actually wrote this in the Bible that I have in front of me, but I have GSM leaders job description 4:3:17. And so I used to go through this with our small group leaders. What does it look like to keep unity? The problem when you read the word like bond of peace, or you look at unity in the Bible context, it has been hijacked, particularly in the culture that we currently live in, because we take that word unity and we make it equal to tolerance. And I've brought this up many times, but it really bothers me because it's not what the Greek had in mind. It's not what Paul had in mind. Paul did not have in mind tolerance. That wasn't even an idea. It actually would have been counter to what Paul was trying to accomplish and to speak truth of. So he says bond of peace, or he says unity. Those things are active, right? So when there's disagreement, let's continue to talk about that. But it's not tolerance where you have your truth and I have my truth. Truth is not relative.
Yeah.
It also means the bond of peace and this unity thing is going to cost us something. So there's a cost involved. Paul would have known that. He's sitting in house arrest. Like he's on house arrest. So unity isn't tolerance, and it's not everyone gets their way. If that was true, and that's what he was arguing for, why is he sitting in a cell? Why is he sitting on house arrest? It also means that there's going to be structural alignment that has to happen. So that means that you may have to give up your preferences for the sake of the gospel. Stop believing and leaning into these false gospels. So that's kind of, if we have to pick one chapter in Ephesians, which, I wish we would have been able to go through all of them. To me, the body of Christ, if we miss the part of unity, if we miss humility, like we've really missed the whole concept of what Paul is trying to communicate. And so in your context at work, I'm sure you see all types of things. How people view money, how people view marriage, how people view different political stances. What does it look like for a Christian to walk into a secular job and to live these things out? What I don't think it looks like is just building up courage for the next 6 months to a year to evangelize to the guy in the cubicle next to you. I don't think that's what it is. I'm not against evangelism. I'm all for it.
For sure.
But what I'm saying is your life should reflect it. That's going to be the greater testimony if your life is reflecting those things. And so it's that balance of you're not being tolerant towards their way of life, but also you're not standing on a corner either with a sign up hating people either.
Yeah.
Like where's that balance? I think, and I said this Sunday, but Randy Alcorn, I think he has given me the best word picture. And he talks about birds. He wrote a whole book about it, but the grace and truth, that it's a wing on each side of a bird. You can't have truth without grace, and you can't have grace without truth. Otherwise, if you just have one or the other, it's going to be a grounded bird. There's going to be no flight. There's only going to be fight, right? That's all there's going to be. And so I think that's what Paul is trying to get us to. We got to be able to stand our ground, go back to God's truth, discern his truth, but we have to do it somehow in a way that with people who look different than us, have believed different than us, who have different histories than us, and somehow we get to the place where we're serving the same God.
Yeah.
We have the same baptism, the same spirit, the same body. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's so cool as we read through a lot of these writings from Paul is, we're learning about the content, but we're also learning about how he's doing it. Yeah. And I think we can learn a lot from Paul, how to speak truth without being judgy.
Yeah.
How to speak truth and not be wishy-washy about it.
Right.
How to speak truth into a culture, in many cultures like this, that you are going to face some opposition and pushback because people are not claiming truth to be truth. They're making it up on their as they go. So I think as we're reading these letters that are thousands of years old, to also be able to say, you know what, the way he's doing it, I can learn a lot from this. Not just the content. It's all wonderful content.
Yeah. But
how he's doing it is really been one of the most eye-opening things for me as we're dealing with so many topics in our culture today that they were dealing with back then, but there's still things we deal with today. Inclusion, all like just how do we love somebody that's not, you're not going to automatically just write them off and be your enemy, but also not just say, okay, well, whatever you want to do is fine. That's not what Paul's doing either.
Yeah.
He's still speaking up against and saying that's not right. That's not what the Bible's teaching us. Here it is.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think it's so cool. He's literally writing to these churches to say, hey, you know what? You're doing a lot of this stuff good, but watch out for this, tweak this, do this. And it made them all better.
Also, how much Paul really believed in this? Like, how did he know this letter was going to get to them? This is like 1,000 miles away. Like, if you look it up, it's roughly around 1,200 miles away.
Yeah.
And he's writing this with great passion,
yeah,
and love for these people, love for truth, love for grace, love for unity. How does he even know it's going to get to them? Mm-hmm. But he does it because he believes in the mission in which God has given, the calling.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing. We're called to just do it and trust the Lord with the rest.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's good stuff. Very good, man. Well, hey, thanks for a little bit more today.
Yeah.
Hopefully you all got something from that. Something else to think about as we go through every day, working and worshiping all in one together. And we'll look forward to being back again with you next week as we continue to journey through the Bible together. Continue to keep up that reading plan and love like Jesus, live like missionaries. Let's do it.
Yep. Have a great week.
See ya.
See you guys.